The following video contains spoilers for Peacemaker on HBOMax. Oh, what? Suddenly pivoting to talking about Peacemaker of all shows is a dumb idea after the subject of my last video was literally TVY7? Well, it's another short one I can get done while I'm off work, so I'm doing it. So I was looking at some takes about Peacemaker on HBO Max in the wake of the final episode, and as my dumb brain is wont to do, I had a light bulb moment when a particular complaint surfaced that I felt was kinda reductive. Specifically, it was a complaint about Vigilante, basically claiming that his character was shortchanged compared to the rest of the cast because he didn't get an arc and was exclusively comic relief. I can understand having that sentiment towards the character, especially if you enjoyed him and wanted him to feel more meaty amongst a cast full of people with arcs, but I actually felt the need to push back against the comic relief thing. I mean, he's Brianna's favorite character, so me coming to his defense was just a given. Here's a reminder to like and subscribe if you enjoy my stuff, by the way. Yes, Vigilante is the comic relief character in a comedy show, in that he's basically the only person in the entire cast who never really stops being funny. But I'd also argue that Vigilante is actually a brilliant character who transcends comic relief precisely because he has no arc. For all the ways he could grow or change as a person, he's a perfect gauge for the growth of the rest of the cast, because he never needs to grow in the specific ways that they each do. His stagnation is to the strength of his place within the story, because he's not just the only static character in the show, he's also the only happy one. I'd argue it's a great case for why major characters in shows don't always need arcs. Starting with what I'll admit is the most tenuous comparison, Murn. The quick way to get to the point here would be to say that unlike Murn, Vigilante doesn't keep secrets. That's obviously a lie though, but here's the thing. Not only is Vigilante really bad at maintaining his one big secret, that being his civilian identity, but it's also not really a meaningful one. Vigilante and Adrian Chase are not distinct personas. They're the same person with the same oddities in different outfits. It's not like Adrian has a life outside of his vigilantism. You get the distinct impression that Vig only bothers with a secret identity at all to stay out of prison. Most of the time, stay out of prison. Outside of that, Murn keeps all of his cards close to his chest, and that leaves him to deal with things like guilt and sadness alone and alienated. Vigilante lays all of his feelings, thoughts, impulses, and desires out on the table the moment they enter his brain, and it's what makes him just as endearing as he is off-putting. Likewise, unlike Economos, Adrian has zero insecurities. There's nothing about himself that Vigilante seems to dislike. He feels no need to impress anyone, even his best friend Peacemaker. While on some level he wishes for Peacemaker's approval, consistently not getting it doesn't seem to affect him much. He just kinda lets it roll off his back when he's insulted or dismissed or treated with hostility, unlike Economos, who vocally lets those things bother him. Hand in hand with this confident like of himself, Adrian never struggles with Adebayo's crisis of conscience. Where Leota spends the entire show agonizing over the morality of her actions, Adrian never lets his convictions be shaken by absolutely anything. While there are maybe layers here that are only ghosted over in their conversation with each other in episode 4...
You think I'm a good man?
Yeah.
For the most part, Vig knows that what he's doing is a moral good and doesn't see the quote-unquote advanced calculus of telling right from wrong that Adebayo struggles with. He just does things with the full belief that his mission or cause is correct and necessary. This is highlighted by Adrian's real biggest flaw as a character, that being that he genuinely enjoys violence, while moral heart of the show Adebayo can hardly stomach it. Moving further on, Vigilante is someone who openly wants and invites friendship, with the implication being that basically the whole team makes his best friend list within the 2 or 3 days they spend together, and you totally believe it. Contrast Harcourt, who is loath to let people in emotionally, and even when she does, can only voice her loyalty to them in terms of fellow soldiers, not friends. Harcourt has built up emotional walls that make Murn and Economos look like nothing, and spends all of her free time alone and miserable. So much so that it brings her to tears to let other people in. Unlike Vig, who seems to use any and all free time seeking people out to have fun with, specifically Peacemaker. And then, of course, there's the man himself, and this one should be obvious. Peacemaker undergoes the biggest change of anyone in the show, and like Harcourt, it's all about tearing down walls. While Amelia's walls are icy stoicism, however, Chris's are all about ego, something Vigilante again does not really have. Peacemaker and Vig both start the show as children in grown men's bodies, but while Chris has to mature because his arrested development takes the form of rage and egotism, Adrian's is more naivety and lack of awareness. If Adrian is ultimately fine with or even oblivious to his lack of approval from other people, and Economos lets it simmer inside of him, making him sad and bitter, then Christopher Smith chooses to wrap himself in a cocoon of false, overinflated self-worth, meant to combat how painfully, horribly aware he is that no one seems to like him all that much. It's to the point that Peacemaker is so worried about being liked that he hasn't developed a concrete set of values. And this is best demonstrated in how much he yearns for the approval of his father. And who other than Vigilante is the most vocal in the show about his father being an absolute scumbag, not worthy of Chris's time or love. Throwing it back to the subject of violence, while Vigilante enjoys killing people for the sake of killing, so long as they're breaking the law, then what the show reveals about Chris is that he doesn't. He doesn't murder people for fun or gratification, but out of a weird displacement, born of guilt for his very first unintentional murder. Watching Chris grow into someone who sees the value in life for life's sake as he simultaneously grows to love himself is really gratifying, and it only works as well as it does because he spends so much time opposite a character who does not do either of those things. Like Peacemaker at the start of the show, or even the Butterflies, who are the show's main antagonists, Vigilante tries to force the world in the direction of his conception of peace by killing people almost indiscriminately. But there's kind of a beautiful paradox to his character. While Peacemaker and Goff are both willing to kill indiscriminately for their ends and don't seem to view life as sacred, at least until Peacemaker undergoes his arc, neither of them seem to enjoy killing the way that Vigilante does, but neither of them are very able to express open compassion for individuals either. Vigilante gets to live in this bizarre world where he will kill anyone that he sees as deserving it with little to no guilt, but he doesn't shut himself off from caring for people. It's a very nebulous idea that I'm not 100% sure how to dive deep into. Much like my main thesis here, like Adrian himself, the idea just kind of exists within the show, floating in and out on a breeze and bouncing off of everyone else's ideals, in a way that leaves you, the viewer, having to come to your own conclusions about what's being said. Vigilante is perfect as the kind of character most ensemble stories benefit from. The one who's already figured out everything the other guys need to work on, if he ever dealt with it at all. He probably will need to become a more dynamic character in Season 2 and beyond, but right now, he stands out precisely because his function is to highlight the growth arc of others by not needing one. It's a storytelling trick I always appreciate. Anyway, what do you guys think? What's the secret sauce that makes Vigilante a character that works for you, or do you have reservations about his use this season? Let me know in the comments, like and subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the future.